All right, grade 8, we are moving right along. Find the volume of the cone. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. Well, once again, volume, remember, is how much you can fit inside of something. We've equated that to a swimming pool in the past. You have a swimming pool in your backyard. You have to figure out the volume to figure out how much water goes in that pool. For the volume of a cone, the formula is volume equals 1/3 of the base, the area of the base, because that's the capital B. The base is a circle, so we'll remember that, times the height. Now remember, when we multiply something by 1/3, it's the same as dividing it by 3/1. So another way to look at this formula would be volume equals the area of the base times the height, and that whole thing divided by 3. That'd be another way to look at that formula. Okay, so here we go. Number 1, here we have a diameter of 4 meters, a height of 6 meters. So if we're going to go with, and I like to divide by 3 better, so if we're going to go with area of the base times the height divided by 3, the base is a circle. So remember the area, the formula for area of a circle is pi times radius squared. That's the formula for area of a circle. Now, 4 is the diameter, okay? So we're going to take the radius, which is half of that. We take the diameter, cut it in half. 4 divided by 2 is 2. When I square 2, I get 4. So pi is 3.14 times 4. Now, I don't want you to confuse this again with diameter being radius times 2. R squared does not mean radius. In this situation, radius is half the distance across the circle, so it would be 4 divided by 2, which is 2. It only works with 2. And then when I square 2, 2 times 2, I get 4. So when I take 3.14, or pi, times 4, it equals 12 and 56/100. So this is equal to 12 and 56/100. All right. So that's the area of the base. Now then if we're gonna take that times the height is 6. Okay. So I'm gonna take my 12.56. Okay. I'm gonna multiply that by 6. All right. So I'm gonna come over here, 12.56 times 6 times the height. That equals 75.36. So that whole thing is 75.36. But then I have to divide it all by 3. So I'm essentially taking this and dividing it all by 3. So I come over here, my 75.36 divided by 3, that equals 25.12. All right? And 25.12, I feel like my camera is off. Now let's do this. That was interesting. So that's going to equal 25.12. Not sure what happened to the camera there, but it'll all be okay. 25.12. All right? But it's volume, so it has to be cubic, and we're talking about meters here. So that's going to be cubic meters. All right? 25.12 cubic meters. All right. So we go to our next one here. Here's number 2. All right. And we have a radius of 6 centimeters, a height here of 15 centimeters. So first of all, we're going to deal with the area of the base. So remember, the area of the base is pi times radius squared. Well, here I can see, because that's the formula for area of a circle, here I can see that my circle, my radius is 6. Now, if I square 6, I get 36. So this becomes pi, which is 3.14. Now remember, you'll also use 22/7 for pi if you're dealing with fractions or if you're dealing with a multiple of 7, because then you can cross-check. All right, but in this case, 36 does not really lend itself to that. So you'll just use 3.14, which is what you would use most of the time. So I come down here, 3.14 times 36 equals 113.04. So this is equal to 113.04. We'll double check that. Sure enough, 113.04. So that's the area of the base. All right. Then we have to take that times the height, which is 15. Now, let me show you another trick that you could do. In the first time, we did it all the way through. We multiplied that by 6. We got the 75.36. We divided that by 3, got 25.12. Now, my height is 15. Now, since I'm doing divided by 3, I could, in this situation, take my 15, divide it by 3, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. Instead of taking 113.04, multiplying it by 15, getting an answer, okay, and then dividing that by 3, I could do the 15 divided by 3 first, get 5, and then just take 113.04 times 5. So I'm going to come back over to my calculator. 113.04 is in there, times 5 equals 565.20. So we get 565.20. All right. And we clean that up. And of course, that 565.20 has to be cubic centimeters. 565.2, okay, cubic centimeters. Now, if I was to round this, of course, the 0 in the hundredths place would tell me to round down and keep that at 2. But with the 0 there, we end up there anyway, okay? They're going to want you to round to the nearest tenth. As you can see that, round your answer to the nearest tenth. So if I go back to my first one, 25.12, I'd look at my 2 in the hundredths place, okay? And that would tell me to round down. Because remember, 4 and less, we round down. 5 and higher, we round up. So in this situation, I would actually end up with 25.1 cubic meters would actually be the answer that I would want there in number 1. All right, so, and here we have this idea. And just to kind of prove a point, all right, let me show you my calculator. So if we go back to the 113.04, which is, we squared the radius, 6 times 6 is 36. So we go back, take that 36, we multiply it by pi, which is 3.14. And we get back to our 113.04. Now, if I was actually to multiply that by the height, which is 15, all right, and go times 15. Remember what we did, we multiplied it by 5 because we took the 15, divided it by 3 first, and just did it by 5, and that's our final answer. I get 1,695.6. Now, if I was to divide that then by 3, I'm back to the 565.2 or 565.20, and that's what I would end up with. All right, and of course, that's in cubic centimeters. All right, let's bring up the second one here. All right. And we got a little 46. All right. So find the missing dimension of the cone. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. All right, so here's something interesting. We know the volume. That's 183. So I could say, well, 183, okay, equals the area of the base, which I don't know, that's B, all right, times the height, which is 7. So I'm going to take my 7 and put it in parentheses there. And then that whole thing, so I have my volume, which is 183, equals the area of the base, which I don't know, okay, times 7, which is my height, all of that being divided by 3. All right, so here we have something a little bit interesting now. Now here we're going to have to work backwards. Basically, I'm going to be solving equations. So I first of all want to get 7b by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do, of course, is take both sides and multiply it by 3. Okay? So I'm going to take 183. I'm going to multiply it by 3. That equals 549. So I end up with 7b equals 549. Okay? So now if I take 7b equals 549, I'm going to divide both sides by 7, and that's going to tell me what b equals. Now, if you want to leave that a capital B, so it signifies here your area of the base, that's fine. But 7b equals 549. So if I divide both sides by 7, all right, I'm going to get 549. I'm going to divide that by 7, and that's going to equal some weird long number. 78.4. Now, of course, the directions are telling me to round your answer to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to just go ahead and plug things in for the nearest tenth, okay? So I'm going to go with 78.4 because that 2 in the hundredths place tells me to round down. And rounding down does not mean making that a 3. It means keeping that a 4. So I'm going to go with 78.4. The area of the base equals 78.4, okay? But I don't want to know the area of the base. I want to know R, okay? Now the area of the base, remember the base is a circle. So that's pi times radius squared. So it's 78.4 equals pi, which in this case we're going to go ahead and use 3.14. Okay, and we're going to multiply that by r squared, which we don't know what r squared is yet until we figure out what this is. So now I have this situation set up, okay, where now to get r squared by itself, I am going to have to divide both sides by pi to get rid of the 3.14. So I'm going to take 78.4. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try something here and see what happens. Let's take 78.4 and let's divide that by 7. Let's see if 22 over 7 can work. Ooh, that finished out pretty nicely, 11.2. So we're going to go ahead and make our numbers a little bit easier. 78.4 worked very well with 7, so instead of 3.14, okay, we're going to take 22 over 7. So we're going to take 78.4, and we're going to divide that by 22 over 7 and see what we get. Well, we get 24.94545455 and so forth, okay? They didn't really do the cross-checking, so to speak. So I guess in this situation, it really doesn't matter. We're going to go ahead with the 24.9 because it looks like we have kind of a 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 5 repeating sort of a thing. I'm not really sure. When we round that, the 4 would become a 5. That's why a 5 is there. But we can see this 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5 keeps repeating. So we're going to just go with 24.9. The 4 tells us to round down. We're going to go with 24.9. Okay? So let's go ahead and we're going to go with r squared equals 24.9, keeping everything to the nearest tenth. Now, our job is to know what r is, okay? Our job is to know what r is. So we need to find the square root of 24.9. So we're going to take 24.9, all right, and we're going to find the square root of that, which equals 4.9899898. Okay? Essentially, when we round to the nearest tenth, we get 4.9. Now the 8 would tell us to round up and make the 9 a 10. But when we make the 9 a 10, really what happens is that 9 becomes a 0 and the 4 becomes a 5. R squared equals 24.9, which means R is approximately equal to 5. Notice I didn't put a true equals. It's approximately equal to 5. And that makes sense because 5 to the power of 2 equals 25. And remember when we rounded we rounded this off, so this kept going, okay, with the 4s and the 5s and all that when we had that earlier. So we have R is equal to approximately 5, and in this case it would be feet that we're using, 5 feet. All right, let's clear some space here. All right, and we're going to start working on the second one. So these take a little time. You got to be willing to be patient, 8th graders. So let's take a look at our second one. 46 cubic meters, which is our volume. So we're going to go, and I'm just going to go ahead and no, that's not going to erase real well. But let's go ahead with 46, which is our volume, equals the area of the base, okay, which I can figure out, okay? So let's go ahead and figure that out because I can figure out the area of the base. Remember, the area of the base is going to be the circle, which is pi times radius squared. Well, radius squared, the radius is 4. 4 times 4 is 16, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and take pi, which is 3.14, and I'm going to multiply that by 16. So I'm going to come over here, okay, 3.14 times 16. That equals 50.24, all right? So this right here is going to equal 50.24. That's the area of the base. So 46 equals the area of the base, which is 50.24 times the height, and that whole thing is divided by 3 because that's the formula for volume of a cone, remember. A base, area of the base times the height divided by 3. Okay, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 to isolate the 50.24H. So pretty much all I'm doing here is 46 times 3, which I think is going to give me 138. Yes, it is. So it's going to be 138 equals 50.24H. So now I have to divide both sides by 50.24, and that's going to isolate the H. So 138 divided by 50.24, that equals 2.7468. Now the 4 in the hundredths place tells me to round down because remember my directions are telling me to round your answer to the nearest tenth. So when I go to the 4 tells me to round down, which means I'm going to keep this as a 7. So in actuality here, H is going to equal 2.7 meters. All right, so that's volume of cones. Talk to you later, 8th grade. Bye.